Start our live recording. And there we go.
Give me time for LinkedIn.
And we're out on LinkedIn for our friends there. Okay, well, hi everybody. Happy September, happy fall, and welcome to September's meeting of the Virtual Events Group. My name is Robin Raskin. Our job in life at the Virtual Events Group is to help you make better events, whether you're on the platform side, the tool side, the production side, the association side, or just people that want to meet and get more out of meetings. I quoted Phil Libin, one of our guests yesterday, saying that synchronous time is the most precious thing that we have with each other. So we're going to try not to waste yours, and we're going to try and use our group think to learn all that we can about how meetings are going to be in the future, whether they are, as I've said, on Mars or in the metaverse or anywhere in between. So today, we're going to focus a lot on what we learned during the pandemic and how we're starting to apply it now. Reports are coming in, and I'm going to ask you all what you've been hearing, but we're hearing about a lot of successful live events and still a lot of events that have been canceled. We're hearing that while attendance is down, the quality is really good and people are walking away happy to be back in person. And we're also hearing that virtual events are actually, contrary to popular myth, starting to monetize and understand better what their virtual events folks need. I think the real challenge for all of us is going to be in a hybrid world where you don't want your live audience sitting looking at the phone, feeling connected to the 5,000 people that are online. And so this will be a year of great experimentation. I think we are all going to get a license to be creative and to make contact with people. So let me share my screen with you for a moment and give you today's agenda. From beginning, we're going to meet Phil and Sherry Huss in a few moments. And then in the second half of our program, we're going to meet Michael Kolowich. And but before I do that, I want to drag you into this for a bit and ask a couple of questions that just came to my mind this week. I've been writing a lot about non-fungible tokens, the idea of selling digital things and you having the certificate of ownership. I'm hearing a lot of talk about them being used in the events world to monetize. Any comments out there on whether you think NFTs can help save events and increase monetization? Julie, I can't see hands, so you call on somebody. Any hands up? Any ideas?
Alfred. Alfred.
There, am I unmuted?
Yes.
You're unmuted.
Okay. I had to say I don't get NFTs, so I'm not a great person to ask. But I'm not quite. I mean, I guess I don't entirely see the linkage between NFTs and virtual events.
Something for Arlene's birthday then.
Okay, so we had the folks from CoinDesk on, and if you remember, with the price of their admission, they packaged some coins that you could spend, earn, save, trade on everything from meeting others, having lunch with a speaker, getting an autograph, attending a session. All of these things were the ability to earn coins. So I think you're going to see the coin currency, the gaming currency, and NFTs, so you walk away with a souvenir of the event, virtual or real, as part of the way that we're going to start to monetize. So next question. Are digital events getting old for you, or are we just learning how to monetize and enjoy them? Any quick thoughts from the audience?
Alyssa?
Hi, everybody. In my opinion, I think that we're actually just at the tip of the iceberg with virtual events. I think, webinars and kind of video sharing is, we've had that around for quite some time, and maybe that's starting to feel old. But I recently attended the MPI's WEC event in June and was actually really impressed at a session that was put on by Freeman's innovation team. And something that the presenter said was that we're basically at the point of like video games in the 80s. Pong, think like early, easy games that came out at that time. And think about how far the industry has come now to the 2020s. And so much has changed. And that's what I think is going to happen with virtual events. We're learning what works, we're learning what doesn't work, we're experimenting. And so much is going to evolve and innovate and change as things change through the years. That's what I think.
And that's what counts. Okay, question 3. So we went to Zoomtopia, at least many of us did, where they threw out more new features than I could take notes on. And so the question is, does the 80-20 rule apply to Zoom features? Is everybody going to stick with using the same 20%, or are we really going to expand and incorporate these new features? And that could go for any platform. Any takers on whether we'll start to use all these features? Okay, well, I can tell you for this meeting.
Lois is raising her hand.
Lois?
But she's muted.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
We gotcha.
Okay. Just like computer software, most people only use 20% of the availability of features. And I have spoken to many developers and they realize that themselves. So if a feature is good and it's easy, user-friendly, and it's something that people need, the feature will definitely get used. But I wanted to bring up a topic. That's why I love Robin's VEG so much, is that I attend like 4 Zoom events a week. And I think before you get to the topic of what you just asked, you have to talk about Zoom etiquette. I don't think Zoom is going to be able to compete with live if people don't know how to present themselves on Zoom. I have attended more meetings where I'm watching someone's fan go around, I'm looking at their naked wives running in the background that don't realize the computer screen is on, or their unmade bed, or they look like they fell out of bed. Or last night I was in a board of directors meeting and I was looking at some guy, up his shorts the entire time because he was like on a lawn chair and he had it up there. And I mean, I can't believe that these are successful business people, the way they behave. And they ought to take a look what's going on behind them, because I mean, that's what we're all looking at. I'm only coming on to see what Robin's drapes look like, what Alyssa's artwork is like. So I think, people don't even want to talk audio anymore. When I just have to say hello to someone, they say, "Oh, why don't we just do a Zoom?" So if that's the feeling, they want to do a Zoom. Robin, it's up to you and your team to perfect it for the world so that all these other questions come into play.
Yeah, great point. Perfection's really different for each person, though. I call it the zoo effect. I like seeing people in their natural habitat. And I actually wrote last week a column that said, if you're going to return to work, you can't just pick people up out of their natural habitat and throw them in an office. It never happened again. That you've got to really, seeing people with their dogs and their underwear and whatever else it is, has given you a sense of humanity and empathy that you didn't have before. So I have no idea where my PowerPoint went. Can you guys see my PowerPoint? Probably not. So I'm just going to think about those things because I want to get into today's program. We do, if you go to virtualeventsgroup.org, that is our website. It started with my PC Magazine background, and Alfred Poor can attest, where we reviewed almost 600 products that fall into the Make Better Meeting space. And we've developed a taxonomy on how to classify them. When you go to visit the virtual events group, you will see the virtual events community. It is your community. We have 3 new members, Touchcast, BetEvent, and Cadmium, who have joined us. We like to think that everybody who joins us is doing better business. And we like to think that we have a level of membership that fits whoever pocket, whoever you are and whatever your budget is. We also have a weekly newsletter. We try and have some fun, but give you thoughts and an update on what we see going on in the world of virtual and hybrid events. And as soon as this meeting is over, if you go to the virtualeventsgroup.org, we are going to put our showroom is up there. And the showroom is a place where, as a vendor of services, platforms, or tools, you can have a place 24/7 to speak to our members and show them what you're doing, meet with them on our community board, have your materials ready. And we're sort of really, really proud of that. And finally, mark your calendar for October 13th, because we're getting near Halloween and fandom is taking off. We're going to have a party with Jim Louderback from VidCon, who, as you know, VidCon is all about the creator economy. And Jim will be talking to Faisal Durrani, who is the co-CEO of Looped Live. And Looped is a platform for fans and talent. And I hope that you'll join us there to get an idea of how creators are monetizing some of these platforms. But without any further ado, and because I can't find my PowerPoint slides, we're going to go right on to the reason that we're here. And that is to hear from 2 people that come from very different ends of the event spectrum. But I'm going to introduce Sherry Huss, who is a dear old young friend of mine from the events business many years ago. And every time we cross, it's wonderful. And Sherry is going to interview Phil Libin, who I'm just meeting for the first time in his window, but I've been a fanboy from the first time I saw and except that when I say arg, because I'm afraid to use it. So Phil's going to make us really comfortable. So I'm going to turn it to Sherry and Phil for to take a look at a really exciting way to communicate.
Excellent. Thanks, Robin. And it's great to be here. And Phil, it's a treat to meet you. Finally, I've been using your products for years. We used Evernote big time at O'Reilly Media with Maker Faire. And I'm also glad that being able to introduce you and talk to you gives me a chance to learn, which has been on my list. I actually was on your beta program last year, kind of never got to it, kind of got close and then pulled back. My goal today is for all of the VEG members. I really want them to, and this goes directly to Lois's comment. It's about, come on, people, like, let's step up your game. There's a whole bigger picture here that Phil's going to share with us. But anyway, I really, I've enjoyed, and this is my first time really using it, but let's welcome Phil. And the one thing, and then I'll let Phil start talking, from the maker world, I always felt that it was important to have a manifesto. And I will say that Phil and really do have a manifesto, and really, it's really clear. And I think we're going to find out in his products that he's following it. So number 1, solve real problems. That's what he and his team are trying to do. Work with great people, have a good business model, and get something out the door on time that people can use. So with that, Phil, welcome. And I threw up a little, you're actually, Twitter is great too. Everyone should follow Phil. His snippets are great. This is your entrepreneurship, is finding a way to embrace the inevitable. And I'll let you introduce yourself and kick it off.
Thank you. Thanks, Sherry. I've been a huge fan of pretty much everything I know about computers and the internet. I learned from reading O'Reilly Media stuff. So great to talk to you as well. I have no idea what I just got myself into. I just listened through the first 10 minutes of this and like, what is this VEG thing? But yeah, let's roll with it. I'm happy to be here.
Excellent. Well, I think, you know, one of the things that I think really, again, I really want people, everyone on this call or on the Zoom, really take a moment and download and start playing around with it. It reminds me, and again, I've been around long enough to know, like back in the days of desktop publishing. I mean, and there's the good and the bad of that, right? Like sometimes you give people way too much to run with. But I really think that this is a new class of like video software. And it's really kind of, you know, as Robin mentioned too, what Phil's doing is kind of supercharging our future and really getting us to think about synchronous and asynchronous time. And I know he's got a lot to say about that too.
Thank you. Yeah, I've got some quick answers to Robin's 3 questions. No one asked me, but NFCs are asinine. Nothing good ever came out of the word monetize. Big red flag, monetize, usually it may. And yeah, video 2.0 is going to be nothing like video right now. So like, are the hundreds of new Zoom features going to be used? Yeah, definitely. Not all of them. There'll be thousands more. We're going to come up with some that are going to get used a lot. We are right at the beginning of what video is really going to be. Even a year from now, we're going to look back at this kind of interaction and be like, that was old-fashioned and quaint.
Bill, can you give us a little more mic volume where people are straining in their seats to hear you?
Just speak louder.
Or just yell.
I can, yeah. How's that?
Ah.
So Phil, how does like with, I mean, I haven't really gotten into recording video. I mean, I'm kind of like 1.0 here, just stepping into it, but even expanding on your, like, what can do to help us in the asynchronous world?
Well, I think the main thing that the main trap that I find myself falling into all the time, especially in a period of big change like what we're living through right now, is but I think everyone does this, is I try to recreate the past. I try to kind of recreate the old reality in whatever the new constraints are. And that's just kind of a lame way of doing it. And so I try to force myself to, rather than saying, well, how do we get back to something that we used to have? Say, how do we go forward to something that's better? So like, I don't care about recreating live events, for example, because I don't think live events were all that spectacular to begin with. They had all sorts of problems. I don't want to go back to live events. I want to go forward to much better events. I don't want to recreate meetings. It's the last thing I want to do. Meetings sucked. It's not like I liked meetings when I was having a lot of meetings. Why would I want to go back to meetings? But what winds up happening all the time is whenever there's a major change, the incumbent players, the people in the companies that are like the most successful, that have the best positions in the old reality, their natural move is to try to recreate that reality. So when you had imagine like the first films, right? The first when they just invented the film camera in the late 1800s, early 1900s, right? They had films. They didn't have movies yet. They tried to recreate the old reality, which was theater. So like the earliest movies are really weird, right? They're just like a static camera pointed at like, 2 actors on a stage, and they all look kind of weird and unnatural. And I'm sure there was like a lot of, theater critics back in, 1910 that were like, these like newfangled movies are a horrible substitute for theater. They're never going to replace theater. And they were right? Because movies aren't about theater, and those weren't movies. Those were theater plays on film. And it took another like 20 years for like the people who were native to the new medium to invent close-ups and editing and multiple cameras and dialogue and all that stuff. And then this happened again, more in my lifetime around Evernote, right? When I was starting at Evernote, 2007, 2008, like the big change was smartphones. Lots of us had smartphones, but no one really knew what smartphone experiences were going to be like. So the incumbent players like, Microsoft and Google were like, well, we know what PC software used to be like. That was like Microsoft Word. And, a smartphone is just a small PC that you stick in your pocket. Microsoft's name for their smartphone was literally Pocket PC. It was that level of being chained to the past. And so, smartphone apps are going to be like shrunken down versions of PC apps. And of course they weren't, right? It took the native generation. It took Evernote and Dropbox and Uber and Airbnb to be like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Smartphone experiences are going to be nothing like PC experiences. They're a totally new thing. And now that's happening with video. Everyone got dumped into video, forced to be on video because of this rapid change. And the incumbent players, Zoom and others, are sitting around saying, this is the go-to move, recreate the old reality. What was the old reality? The old reality was meetings. So they're like, what were meetings? Meetings were a bunch of tired people, kind of boring, sitting in a boring room, talking about something boring for an hour. But now they can't all be in the same physical room because of COVID. So how do we recreate a bunch of tired, boring people talking about something boring for an hour, but on a computer? And you got this. And everyone's like, oh, it's kind of dull. Well, obviously video 2.0 isn't going to be anything like trying to recreate a meeting or an event or anything like that. It's going to be an entirely new thing, mashing together synchronous and asynchronous, live and recorded, in person and present. And it's going to be stuff that is hard to imagine now, but looking back a couple of years from now, it's going to be hard to realize that we ever lived in a different way.
Yeah.
It's a really long answer, man. I'm really sorry.
No. That's great. That's great. I mean, I think that kind of leads us to the next one. Here's another one of your tweets, which I actually love. And, we've been working from home, but really why? We could be working from anywhere. And I love this about Crystal Bridges. I mean, when actually Rob and I worked for Bill Ziff, he would sometimes just say, get out of the office, go to the Guggenheim, check something out and figure out what it means with your work. You're actually giving us a tool now to liberate us to think differently about everything. And so you're kind of a gateway video product that's just on the verge of this whole new distributed lifestyle and workforce.
Well, we're trying to be. We're trying to really help create the world that we wish existed. And yeah, you're right. I mean, working from home, I think that a very common mistake is people think that distributed working means working from home, and it doesn't. Distributed working only means working from home if you haven't had time to prepare. You got thrown into being distributed. You got thrown out of the office because of COVID, and now you got to work from home with your, was it wives that were naked? That was interesting. Walking around behind you. Yeah, okay, that's only there because you haven't had time to prepare. Once we've had a few months, we can kind of set up our lives being distributed by choice, not because we're forced to do it. We don't have to work from home. Like, yeah, I work from home sometimes. I'm at home now because, I wanted good lighting and stuff like that. And good microphone, although obviously the first mic I was using has failed miserably. But sometimes, yeah, sometimes I work from a museum. I moved from San Francisco to Northwest Arkansas, to Bentonville, which is beautiful. So there's like 3 or 4 places within about a 10-minute walk of where I am, and I choose where I want to work from based on what I'm trying to accomplish. So if I want to be creative, I do it in a museum. I also work from a pool. There's this beautiful club here. There's a great, a bunch of hangout lounges, but also a really amazing pool. And so I'll do some Zoom calls, and then I'll swim a few laps in the pool, and then I'll do some Zoom calls. And it turns out that swimming laps in a pool is the exact opposite of being in a Zoom call. It's literally the furthest you can get away from every experience of being in a Zoom call is swimming in a pool. So it's like the ultimate reset. And in my past life, I would never do that, right? I'd never go swimming in the middle of the day. How would I even attempt to do that? I have to drive somewhere? It's crazy. But now I'm working from the pool. So yeah, once you kind of lean into it, once you kind of say, let's not focus on all of the difficulties that being distributed gives us, because the difficulties are boring. Let's focus on the superpowers that we could never have before that being distributed gives us. They're amazing superpowers that I'm never giving up again. And I think once everyone kind of understands the superpowers, they're never giving them up. So we're never going back to the old world. The old world sucked. Our job is to make the new world better.
So can you share some of those superpowers?
Well, yeah, I mean, it depends on, in what domain. So for companies, let's start with 0% of the people who work with me waste any time commuting. That's already kind of great, right? 0%, no one wastes time commuting. Average was 2 hours a day before, now it's literally 0. So 100% of the people, no time commuting. And imagine if somehow magically, let's say we were in an alternate reality, and we're still in the office, but no one ever commuted because we had teleportation was working. We could just Star Trek beam into the office, so no one ever commuted. No one knew what it was. And I come into the office one day and I'm like, hey, everyone, I've got a CEO idea. Everyone gather around. I'm going to need each of you to waste 2 hours a day sitting in traffic. Yes, you can't be productive and do work at that time. And yes, you're not spending that with your friends or your family. And yes, it's pretty stressful and bad for you and unhealthy. And oh my God, it's terrible for the environment. But, it's strategy, 2 hours every day, wasted sitting in traffic, go. Right? My board would be like, oh, the CEO's gone crazy. I would be fired instantly. But that's kind of what we're asking people to do if you wanted to go back to the office. Obviously, that's not a thing that's going to happen for people where does it need to happen for. Another one is people can live wherever they want, right? They can live wherever they want and have the job they want, and the two don't have to be connected, right? You can work wherever your best job is, and you can live wherever your best life is. Those two things are connected. That's never been true in the history of the universe, and now it's true for hundreds of millions of people. So, if you always wanted to live on the beach and surf all day, you can do that today and still keep your job, and it won't affect your career. You don't have to wait to retire. You don't have to suffer for 40 years so that you can enjoy life when you're, older and can't really enjoy it anymore. You can enjoy it now while you're working. And will that make you more productive and more creative? Yeah, obviously, in the right kind of industry. So these are amazing things. And all we have to do to achieve these things is to again, focus on the superpowers. Don't focus on the obvious problems. The obvious problems are obvious and they're solvable, and we'll solve them. Double down on the amazing advantages.
Excellent. That's cool. Well, Maker Faire obviously was something I've spent a lot of time at, and I know that education is really important. And I'm so thrilled to see that you're giving educators free access and students. And just wanted to, again, thank you for that. Let everyone know. And again, if students and educators are tapping into this, we all should too. But are there other verticals that you're focusing on as well?
Yeah, I think, we want to make a difference. So we've got this whole persona map of who are our target customers, but our philosophy is basically the people that are important to us are people for whose lives are economically better, materially economically better, because our product exists in their lives. So it's for people and companies who need to be good at video, not necessarily good on video. That's an important part, but good at video, good at being convincing and compelling on video, good at watching video and hearing updates and giving feedback. People for whom being good at video makes a material economic impact. And so the obvious ones there are, teachers and students and salespeople and investors and things like that. But it's really pretty broad. It's really just about everyone who wants to be distributed, which I think is going to be literally almost everyone on the planet. Not everyone, but almost everyone over the next few years.
No, that makes sense. Well, anyway, thank you for that. I'm now going to Decameron Row, which was another one of a pandemic learning and key thing for me as well. But with that, what are 3 reasons that you think that this audience should pay attention? And you might not know, but this is an audience of innovators. They've been in the event space, they're in the tech space. They definitely care about moving things forward. And I really, really, really want people to try it, because I've only been playing around with it for the last week or so. But I have to say, I've just scratched the surface, and it's a lot of fun. There are things that I can, some of the magic, I can just get myself to go away, or I can get myself really small and go into a window. This is all I'm doing within Zoom. And I actually had a little bit of a fear of how can I do this? And it's honestly, it's addictive. I want to do more and do more. So maybe you can, again, tell the folks why they should do it, because I think again, I come from a maker world. Get hands-on. Once you start learning it, you can start seeing the value that it's going to add in your life. And it's just making that jump.
Yeah, I think philosophically, the first step, the most important thing is to try to understand what are we trying to optimize for? So one question I had just by listening to the intro here is why are we calling these virtual events? What's virtual about this? You're just going to call it virtual events. You're immediately putting it a few rungs below, because you're saying it's not real. There's real events, and then there's virtual events, and that is never going to lead to anything successful. It's not virtual. This is as real as it gets, as real as it's ever going to get. Now you may say in person versus online. Okay, that's a little bit of a different framing. There's nothing virtual about this. In fact, they shouldn't be virtual. We should be thinking of them as augmented events. What are the events that are augmented? How are they illuminated? How are they better than they've ever been? Not almost as good, right? That's the main, I think, shift in framing and mentality. That's super important. Like we need to go from, and this is the thinking that we went through ourselves. Like we had to go from thinking about, how do we survive the pandemic to how do we thrive in the new world that comes after the pandemic, and how do we help build that world? And it sounds like, I know I sound a little bit Pollyannish sometimes about this, but it's made a huge difference for me and for our companies. And we've been lucky enough, we've hired, we were 2 people a year and a half ago. And I think now we're like pushing 100. I think we're like 95. We raised $138 million in the past year to build this. It's entirely because we went from thinking about this as a short-term way to survive and get through something to permanently available superpowers and advantages that we're going to use to thrive, right? So so that's the main idea, is think about like, how do you make something better than it's ever been? The breakthrough moment for me, like, it started as a joke. It was a complete joke in the beginning. We started working on it in May of 2020. A couple of months after we all went into lockdown, and things were just super boring, right? Everything was tedious. And we were just goofing around. We just started playing around with GIFs and backgrounds, and we just wanted to make people smile a little bit for like a few days. And then we thought we'd get tired of it. So it started as a joke. But everyone we showed it to was like, oh, that's really cool. How are you doing that? But the breakthrough moment came when I had to teach a class. There's a class that I teach about startup metrics, called the state machine. And basically it's pretty dense, like mathy stats stuff about how we measure things. So I had this class many times before. I had lots of slides for it, and I was supposed to teach it, but I couldn't teach it in person because, COVID. I teach it online, and I was going to cancel. I'm like, no, this is going to suck. This is going to be so boring. No one wants to hear me showing slides as and like looking for my PowerPoint as a little box somewhere. I'm like, no, I'm going to cancel it. But then I thought, well, we're probably going to be doing this for a year or two. So I don't want to cancel everything. So I may as well do something. And so I decided, well, rather than trying to recreate what my old class would have been like, what if I just threw it all out and created it fresh entirely for video, not to try to recreate the live class, but to make an entirely new one just for video. And so I made a bunch of slides and just like hand-drawn napkins, and I taught the class in Zoom using a really early version of mmhmm. And I was like flying around, kind of like what you were doing, and pointing at things, and there was animation and like all sorts of stuff. And it turned out great. And not only did it turn out great, it turned out significantly better than my live classes used to be. Because actually, like, there's also this stuff that I couldn't do live on a stage that I could do if I was flying around with slides. And it wasn't like high production value. I just made it all myself in, an afternoon. But it was really engaging, and it was really expressive, and it made people smile, and it made people remember some pretty non-trivial concepts. And I thought, oh yeah, this is like, I just did something that was better than what it used to be in the before times. So how do we, like, maybe this isn't a short-term thing, maybe this is a long-term permanent change in the world, and we got to really lean into that. And it all kind of started with that. So I would encourage people, use mmhmm or don't. It doesn't really matter that much. The point is, like, avoid skeuomorphic thinking. Don't try to recreate the past in the present world. Try to make the present world the way it should be, and things are a lot more fun that way.
Yeah, no, for sure. Well, I think we'll probably wrap up here, but I do have, there's one question from Rodney Gibbs that's talking about how do you, or what have you done to kind of create those serendipitous moments that happen when you're live? Like, have you found that you and your team have been able to do that using mmhmm?
Yeah, I mean, we have, so there's a lot of like mourning for things that we used to have that are harder to do. Like, there's a lot of like romanticization and fetishization of like the past. Like, oh man, remember when we used to like stand around the coffee machine and we used to have those amazing talks, and like that other time there was that idea and it came out of nowhere, and like, man, how are we going to get back to that? We're not. Never going to happen again. You're gonna have to find another way to have like serendipity and come up with ideas. And guess what? Like, that old way wasn't that good, because yeah, there's like the 2 times I remember it worked, and then there was the 30 years that it didn't. So how else do we do it? Well, if you think about it that way, it turns out there's lots of ways. So yeah, so we have all sorts of synchronous and asynchronous discussions. We never waste time talking synchronously when we're just updating each other. That's 100% of that is now done by recording things and watching it, faster than real time and saving tons of time. So then when we are talking synchronously, and you started this by quoting me about how synchronous time is the most precious resource. Yeah, like we don't waste it anymore. Every time we talk synchronously, it's everyone's already on the same page and we're actually having a discussion. Like we're taking turns, like moving our mouths back and forth, and actually like being more prepared, not listening to lectures in synchronously, having that interaction. It actually makes us more human and more creative. So the level of productivity and creativity that our team has had in this year and a half of working distributed has obviously been higher than we've ever had before. We were a creative team before. We've accomplished far more in the past year and a half than we've ever accomplished in a year and a half before, or in 5 years before. So it's obviously working great. And it's working great because we're not sitting around like missing what it used to be. We're like, okay, well, good riddance to that. How do we go forward? And there's an infinite number of ways to go forward.
No, absolutely. And I think actually it would be fun to have a whole team working and using the product and then keep out creating each other.
Check it out, and we have, get in touch. We have a team that's just there to help event organizers to like figure out how to really use it well. We do training, so like we'd love to work with anyone here to just really make it great. If you want to engage with that philosophy of like, we're not trying to help you get through a short-term problem to make it almost as good as it used to be. We're trying to help you make it better than it's ever been, and we want to be creative about how to do that. Then just get in touch with us at mmhmm.app, and we have people standing by that want to help you do this.
Absolutely cool. Well, thank you, and I'm glad I'm keeping moving things forward. And thanks for the opportunity, and look forward to more great things from
Thank
you. I think Robin maybe.
So Phil, let's everybody, like whatever you do to say thank you to Phil, but we will send you some vowels in the mail today as your special gift for being here with us. We will ask you questions through, I think Maddie Dalton is on the chat and has made a generous offer to help us all get smarter. I do personally feel my superpower would quickly turn into a ransom note if I started using all of mmhmm's features. So I'm going to take advantage of Maddie and Rosie's kind offers. And we're going to move on to our next.
You remember ransom notes.
I made them. I was really
they're memorable. It's not the world's least effective form of communication. So there's worse things in life.
You think differently. You're right. I stand corrected. And many of my newsletters do look like ransom notes. So anyhow, thank you. We're going to totally switch, and thank you, Sherry. And we're all going to be back on next month. And I want to introduce you to a dear friend and a big thinker in a very different way, in a very structured, organized. How can we scale what we do, and how can we make what we do secure so that everybody from banks to medical officers to investment firms feel comfortable? And that is Michael Kolowich. I'm going to stick a spotlight on him right now. Michael, I've known for many years, originally at Ziff Davis, founding publisher of PC Computing, built Ziff Davis's online business. Literally, we were using CompuServe and Prodigy when Michael started to figure out what our online presence should look like. He's an Emmy Award-winning TV reporter. He's been at Bain and Company. He's been at Lotus, and if you remember, same as Zoom, Lotus Notes was our operating system for many, many years. And now he's working on a fabulous new venture, Open Exchange. But Open Exchange didn't happen overnight. It happened from the pandemic as well. So I was hoping that, Michael, you could start by telling us how Open Exchange got to where it was because of the pandemic.
Yeah, thanks very much for that introduction. And Phil, what a tough act to follow. Thank you so much for that. So Open Exchange actually came out of two companies, one of which I founded, which was Knowledge Vision, which was an online, streaming and on-demand video platform built about 10 years ago. And then Open Exchange had been working with banks and solving a very particular problem, which was how do you interconnect diverse video conferencing systems together when the banks have optimized them for not being penetrated. So with firewalls and with security protocols and all this stuff, and everybody has their own, system. Well, the problem is that when you started wanting to meet between firms and among firms, when you want to have bankers and CEOs of companies and big investors like portfolio managers at Fidelity all on the same call, it was impossible to connect them because everybody used different systems. So Open Exchange had figured out how to put that together, and over the course of time, they had put together essentially a database of about 100,000 ways of connecting to, say, every conference room at Citi and all the major executive suites and all these analyst desktops and the like. And once they did that, they said, well, gosh, we've got effectively 100,000 studios from which we can organize stuff. So we put the two of those together using Knowledge Vision's Novio platform to kind of stream out things that were originated from these calls. So along comes January 31st of last year, and we get a phone call, Morgan Stanley or JP Morgan on the phone, and they say, we got a problem. We have this big China investor conference happening in Shenzhen in 2 weeks. And the US has just imposed a travel ban between US and China. Nobody can get anywhere. We got to figure out how to virtualize it or else, we're dead. Can you help us? So we basically, in that 2-week period between January 31st and February 13th, figured out how to do this using the technology that we had cobbled together and the like. And basically since then, we've ended up producing and facilitating just about every major investor event in the financial services space. So we work with all the major global banks and three stock exchanges, I guess, as well.
So the secret sauce, if you will. So there's tons of platforms out there that banks can be choosing from, and I've seen them do some of their meetings out in the open. But tell us about. So your secret sauce is A, interconnecting all these people on their various platforms, but B, making them feel comfortable doing that. How did you do that?
Well, first of all, if you look at these events, and this will give you an idea of kind of the scale of what we've done. We've actually managed 586 virtual conferences, facilitated 164,000 virtual meetings in the last 12 months. So it's been a pretty amazing experience. And the secret sauce really is adding people and technology. So we have a platform, we have a platform solution, but the fact of the matter is what makes this go is people to actually manage these interactions. The key to understand about investor conferences is they're a little bit different from kind of just your run-of-the-mill keynote speaker, plenary sessions, a few breakout tracks, and then a cocktail hour, and you're done, right? These events have a pre-scheduled set of kind of one-on-one and small group meetings associated with them as well. So a company may go to a conference and present their strategy for the coming year, but they may also have 10 meetings with heavy hitting investors pre-arranged by the bank. And all of those have to come off perfectly. We have to make sure that all the right people are in the right room, and nobody who doesn't belong there is in there. We have to handle it really, really discreetly. And so we do that with a team of people. We went from 37 people to almost 2,000 people over the course of a year. They're all over the world. And some of these people are incredibly experienced at doing secure meetings. 3 of them worked in the White House Situation Room before they came to Open Exchange. So they know how to handle these kinds of very, very sensitive meetings. And so it's a matter of building up trust over time and not screwing up.
And the financial industry really did keep moving along through the pandemic because of systems like this.
Well, that's the thing, Robin, is that a lot of conferences were able to be postponed, because at the end of the day, people had bigger things to worry about. The problem is that when the pandemic hit, the stock market crashed. Every company, every sector was affected in ways that were not immediately obvious. And so these meetings and these conferences had to happen. They absolutely had to happen. They couldn't be postponed. And in fact, one of the things that happened was that there became more of them, not fewer of them, and attendance went up considerably. On average, 40, 50%, sometimes doubled the attendance from all over the world. So, we didn't have the luxury of being able to delay.
And so I'm going to guess that your clients, the banks and the investment houses, are pretty happy that they've cut down on travel. Although your events are kind of expensive, right? Like if I were to just walk in and say, hey, I'm Citibank, I want to do this conference in 1 week, in 2 months. Tell me about lead times and costs, and how they had to adjust.
Well, I will say that on average, they're about 60% cheaper than doing them in person, because a lot of these had, kind of hotel, and food and beverage costs and kind of associated with them that ran up the cost. So actually doing virtual events has not only been more convenient, but it's also been less expensive. And a lot of these companies have also committed to what they call ESG goals, or sustainability goals, of reducing carbon footprint. That was in effect even before the pandemic hit. And a lot of these banks were talking to us about how do we, one of the big expenses we have is, sending people to all these conferences, and putting them on remotely around the world and around the country. So, the carbon footprint is down dramatically, and we've been documenting that. Yeah.
And business is still getting done. So I think one of the things that you do, and I can't even wrap my arms around on how you facilitate one-on-one meetings with the size of the conferences that you do. So walk us through what's that. Again, I'll just say Citibank. I'm Citibank. Here are the people I need to meet. And then your human people do this, your algorithms do this. What happens back there?
Yeah, let me actually kind of take you into one of these things.
Cool.
I can't show you a real one because these things are all highly secure.
Yes, they would shoot. They would be after you.
so this is one that we made up, which was a kind of a travel and leisure conference. And every person who comes to one of these things, well, first of all, they can look at kind of what the general sessions that are available are. And they can say, yeah, I'd like to go to the American Airlines presentation, and kind of add that keynote to my schedule, add this one with Uber to my schedule. But they also have come in with personalized schedules. So the bank may have actually booked them for a series of meetings. So they come in and there's a meeting that they have with Hilton Worldwide and with Marriott International and with JetBlue. And to join that meeting, they basically just go here and they can see the details, and they just click in, and it will open up, a Zoom meeting or a WebEx meeting, or however they have chosen to connect into it. And then the whole kind of conference is laid out like this, with the keynote and plenary sessions and the individual company presentations. And then every one of these things, when you open it up, it'll open up to kind of a video presentation stream.
Thanks for joining us.
Okay, that's me. And so kind of synchronizing video and slides and footnotes and things like that. So you have that kind of thing. So, but the real key to this is actually on the back end. So if I go back to this, this is what the back end looks like. So you can, the organizers of the conference can create these meeting schedules on great big spreadsheets, and they actually have meeting setting programs like MeetMax and several other platforms that they can output these schedules out of, and they just import it into this, and now you've got kind of a control panel for the organizers of the event. So here's looking just at this 9 o'clock block. You can see that American Airlines, American Express, Avis, Bookings Holdings, Carnival, all these guys have meetings, some of which are company presentations, some of which are small group meetings, some of which are one-on-ones. And what happens is over the course of the day, we've got a team of operators who are basically saying, okay, I'm running this meeting. I'm actually taking this room for American Airlines, and you may have American Airlines for the day, and I'm actually going to run this meeting. So I'm going to say, signal that this room is open, this virtual room is open, it's ready to go. And then as people arrive, as Doug Parker arrives, we can mark him in, and he shows up there. If there are problems with particular people, let's say that David Golden, has a problem with his audio, I can make notes there, and then that gets flagged so that the people who are organizing these big events kind of know what's happening at any given moment. I think you title this kind of events at scale. It's not only we're doing a lot of events, but these events are huge. They can sometimes have over 1,000 meetings going on at the same time. And across our company, the other day, I saw, on Slack that there were something like 600 meetings going on literally at the same time that we were facilitating in over a dozen conferences. So it's crazy.
So we have a question. I'm going to call on Marty Porter, who has some questions about your video. Marty, you there?
I'm here, Robin. So what do you, with all that we're all drowning in video, right? We have more video than we ever had before, and organizing it and using it and sharing it and getting people to look at it is the big challenge for us. So you have hundreds of sessions like this. You're organizing in a really nice little package. What are you doing for on demand, and what's your on demand strategy and platform?
Well, the platform we use is our Novio platform. So we have our own that we've had in the market for quite some time. It's somewhat modeled on Brightcode, but it really has evolved to be tailored to creating these large video libraries and organizing them and having them searchable and presentable. And more recently has been organized and optimized for events. I'll show you another example here. Content marketing world. Let me pull up my screen here. Okay, hopefully you're seeing this. So this is content marketing world. Which when this was live, we had kind of the live stream going here, but as keynote sessions were being completed, they would drop in here. We would, a lot of the keynotes actually, and this goes a little bit to Phil's point, a lot of the keynotes actually got pre-recorded, and we found that really, really advantageous, not only for risk mitigation, which you'd normally associate with that, but a lot of the speakers got really creative about being on location and multiple locations and showing things, things that you just couldn't do as easily on stage. So again, to Phil's point about the ambition shouldn't be kind of how do you live up to a virtual, a physical event, how do you exceed it is really the goal. So a lot of the keynotes were that way, but then we brought it back to live Ask Me Anything sessions with all of these speakers. Obviously there were simultaneous breakout tracks, and so you go into these. This is all organized. We had virtual exhibition halls for it, networking, trivia contests at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, all this stuff, and a lot of this then now lives on, so that one of the so that the content marketing world folks sold along with the in-person ticket a virtual or an on-demand add-on, because nobody can possibly attend all of the sessions that are going simultaneously. You go to one of these conferences, you might want to see 2 or 3 sessions, and there may be things being discussed that you didn't even know you were going to want to know about 3 months hence. So so this has all been, they make these available for a year, and really the usage throughout the course of the year really is quite robust.
Thank you, and thanks, Marty, for the question. So some other questions, and we're going to start to wrap, but looking at the future, the banking world does want to meet in person, as you said. You're doing these vastly successful, enormous virtual events. What happens next?
Yeah, they do want to. What I would say is it's really important to look, even in the banking world. I think that where we're going to go is towards, a portfolio of events for a financial institution where they might have, one signature event per quarter, where in a sector where they're really, really well known, and that will be their in-person event or their hybrid event. And we haven't talked about hybrid, but we're very, very active in the whole space of creating events that have both physical and remote participants and presenters. So that's a whole other topic for another time. But you'll have these big signature events, and then you'll have many, many more smaller events that will stay virtual. And so that's happening. Now, outside of financial services, we're discovering more and more sectors that have the same kind of problem, where they need to have kind of secure pre-scheduled meetings. You think of going to a big conference like a Gartner Group conference or something like that. There are sessions, but one of the really, really important parts of those things are pre-arranged meetings with analysts that are happening kind of inside rooms and the like. And so we're able to kind of support that kind of thing on a virtual basis as well. And we're seeing that in professional services and consultancy, in healthcare and pharma, in government, and a number of other sectors. So we're taking this capability, outside of financial services, but we've really developed that core capability there with the major banks and investor communications.
So, and do you do this all alone, or are there third party like equipment rental on site? I mean, you're handling logistics as well, I can assume, as well as the event, correct?
Well, typically, we'll work with an AV company on site, although we have developed an equipment solution for hybrid meetings where some of the participants are in a remote and some are in a conference room, and we're starting to apply that for virtual meetings. So we're actually using a piece of technology that can really, really quickly be installed in in kind of a hotel breakout room, and can kind of go both ways of supporting any mix of in-person and remote participants.
Yeah, we're hearing a lot, and we've talked about that, and actually we'll have some of the hotel chains come on to talk about teching up their venues as well. But Michael, you've been through so many epochs and eras of change in the video industry. Put this one in perspective. Most exciting yet, most opportunity, and tell the people listening out there where you think their opportunities lie, because you've clearly identified and found one.
Yeah, right. So I've been involved in video, really all of my professional life. I started as you mentioned as a TV news producer and reporter, and watched these successive bits of technology. I agree with Phil that we don't know what video 3.0 and 4.0 really are. Mitch Kapor, who I worked with at Lotus, used to say that we almost always overestimate what can be accomplished in the next year, but we vastly underestimate what can be done in the next 5 to 10 years. We have no idea, but I think that remote production and this blending of kind of in-person and remote participants, remote origination, is really, really fertile ground. And again, you know, I'd go back to what Phil said, which was that you know, don't be limited by trying to imitate, you know, what you already do, but really kind of use the advantages of the medium to break out.
And I will say that Michael is an open exchange for members of VEG. And so if there's a way that if you want to reach out to him and call on his expertise or vice versa, that's what we do. And that's why we're here. And I have time for one more question. If anybody has one, hard for me to see this. I promise I will be off vacation for our next meeting. Any questions? Any last thoughts? Okay then. Well, remember October 13th for sort of our fan creator talent edition of the show. Michael, I can't thank you enough for your wisdom and expertise and willingness to share with us, as well as Phil and Sherry. I hope you'll all sign up for the newsletter. I hope you'll visit our store this evening. Thank you again. As Phil says, synchronous time is the most precious, and thank you for sharing it with us. Many thanks. Talk to you soon. Bye.